Welcome to Public Safety Talk Radio, the podcast for all of our heroes in public safety, including law enforcement professionals, firefighters, EMTs, corrections officers, healthcare workers, and more. This show is produced by the POCUA and is founded upon its Soundness initiative. This episode is sponsored by Police Mortgage. Police Mortgage is a full-service mortgage company dedicated to serving police officers and first responders. Founded in 2008, Police Mortgage offers a variety of mortgage products tailored to meet the needs of those who serve and protect. Police Mortgage, for first responders who are second to none. Hi, I'm Ken Bader, your host for Public Safety Talk Radio, and I have another great guest, a really interesting guest. His name is John Williams, and no, he is not the famous music creator from Raiders of the Lost Ark and Star Wars and all that, but he's just as important. Let me tell you about him. He is the president and CEO of WAR Inc., which actually stands for Weapons, Aerospace, and Research. He holds a BS in International Business and is an MBA candidate. Great. He retired in 2013 as a combat marine with tours in Iraq and Afghanistan with extensive military and professional experience. And we definitely give you props for that and thank you for your service. After retiring from the military, transitioned. See, I need to learn to read. John transitioned to the defense sector as the director of business development at Stonehold for nearly 11 years. In his role, he effectively managed extensive defense material procurement projects, significantly impacting corporate revenues through multi-million-dollar transactions. He was responsible for maintaining a vast national and international network and managing both B2B and B2C relations. John, welcome to the show. Can you live up to that great bio that you have there?
I'm not always sure at it, but I tried to.
Well, I can say this. I had the pleasure of meeting John briefly at the SHOT Show in January of 2025. We had a great conversation, and as what practically almost always happens at the SHOT Show, I'm impressed with all these men and women and entrepreneurs, mainly doing things for military and police and firefighters and so forth. So I really appreciate what you do, appreciate your service. But let's get into you. I mean, you have this vast bio and history. How did you get involved in Weapons, Aerospace, and Research, Inc.?
So about 2.5 years ago, I started the company, and honestly, it started out with doing training because when I was in the Marine Corps, I was able to go through the Mountain Instructor course, so at the time it was called the Urban Assault Leaders course, and then also at the end of my career be a marksmanship instructor. And so when I started Weapons Aerospace and Research, or WAR Inc., we started out in providing training to the locale in Washington, and kind of started managing apparel and designing apparel and things like that. And when I first got out of the military, I actually had started an ammo company,
Hmm.
or helped start an ammo company. That was Stonehold. And through those connections throughout time, basically, I ended up rekindling some of those old contacts and kind of progressively pushed WAR Inc. back into the defense sector. And so through those connections and through over the past couple of years, we've kind of grown exponentially. And now we're a company that can provide training, but honestly, that's kind of been put in the background of kind of what we do. And now what we have is a photonics program, so a light laser program, which is the Cerberus technology, which is what we were talking about at SHOT when we were there for our booth. And then we also all the way up to owning the TDPs, which are the technical data packs, in order for us to produce large scale ordnance to like our military standard or NATO standard. So everything from 40 millimeter programs all the way up to 70 millimeter programs. We kind of dabble in EW warfare, and we also can provide the TDPs for large scale ordnance like 155 artillery rounds, all the way up to the Mark 80 series bombs 1, 2, 3, and 4, and the Blue 109, which is like your 2,000-pound bombs, and the fusing along with those programs. So
Interesting. Yeah, I love these stories because obviously I support our military and law enforcement and first responders. And being an entrepreneur myself, I love the entrepreneurial story of how people get involved in these things, start these things. Usually they find a problem. It's like, hey, we need a solution for this. It ain't out there, so I'm gonna create it. And so I love this intersection of military law enforcement and the entrepreneurial world. And I was looking at your website, and to use a really high level, because we're both MBAs, a really high level MBA phrase. You guys offer a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
For a lot of different, military first responders. In fact, one of the things that I found, really interesting was the area of medical that you do a lot for healthcare professionals with essential tools, including oxygen tanks, medications, medical PPE, EMS vehicles, even, and so forth. And we don't really, hit on the EMT healthcare part of our little group that much. Tell us a little bit how you got involved in that and what you do in the healthcare medical area.
Yeah, so a lot of that is overseas procurement. So it's a matter of filling gaps and voids where necessary for our allied countries or for special projects, whether it's kind of throughout AFRICOM or all the way down to we've got partner technologies that allow us to extend the mechanical needs of the ambulance teams, for example. There's a contract that through a partner company that we work with that we had out in New York. So a lot of ambulance companies out there, they go through brake rotors pretty consistently because they're stopping and going at
Hmm.
speed. And
Yeah.
so, that we
Never
had
thought of
one,
that.
yeah,
Interesting.
we had one company that was going through every, few weeks, they were going through a set of brake rotors, right? So our technology that we were able to introduce to the brake rotor allowed us to extend the lifespan of the brake rotor from, 2 to 3 weeks out to like over 3 months. And so we were able to save that department and that company money and not have to have the actual ambulance off the road, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so all the way from the mechanical side of offering technologies that do that to just the actual providing the actual piece, right? So we were at one point trying to work around a large project when the whole like Gazan war kind of kicked off, trying to find ways to provide medical supplies into that region and support
Mm-hmm.
into that region because this is how much turmoil was going on. So
Yeah, that's really interesting. What amazes me in doing this show is almost every episode I do, not only do I learn something new, but our guest hits on something that I never even thought about, but it makes perfect sense with the brake rotors of an ambulance. You don't think about how much wear and tear those vehicles have, especially in a city like I live in Los Angeles, or where I grew up in Chicago, or New York, where I seem to visit, once a year. I mean, especially New York, you go from I don't know how they save anybody in New York. I mean, they sit and stop and go traffic, and then all of a sudden, they'll get on a boulevard that's open and go, 50, 60, 70 miles per hour to go save somebody. I can't even imagine the wear and tear that happens in these big cities on these ambulances.
yeah. And so if we can eliminate downtime, right, then our objective is saving lives, right? Across the board.
Yeah.
That's what these services are for. And so if we can help assist that, then it's no different than our mission to provide, the next level capability to the warfighter. It's all the same mentality. Like
Hmm.
how do we save lives? How do we make people better at their job?
Are you looking for a podcast to answer some financial questions? Well, then check out the Mortgage Beat podcast, brought to you by Police Mortgage, for first responders who are second to none. Mortgage Beat gives insight into the home loan process specifically for police officers, firefighters, and other public safety professionals. The podcast is hosted by Police Mortgage CEO John Aritos, who has decades of experience in the mortgage industry. Check out Mortgage Beat on Spotify today. Well, you gave me a perfect segue to the next question that I wanted to ask, which is related to law enforcement and the whole trend of non-lethal, being able to stop a suspect, but stop them in a non-lethal way. And I know that you have a lot of non-lethal research, that translates to really what police need and even want today. So talk a little bit about the non-lethal options that War Inc. provides.
Yeah, so we can provide a whole myriad of things. We have a lot of connections to kind of like every resource when it comes to non-lethal. For us, our specific focus is through our photonics program. So we have this product called the Cerberus, and I'll hold it up just so
Uh-huh.
you guys can see it. So this is it. As you can see, it can be weapon mounted. So right now it's on a 2A 1913 rail, and then it has a handle. So the way we've been selling this to law enforcement or some of the three-letter agencies is just as you see it here. So this is basically a standalone version of it. So you can just use it like this.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what this light does, um, well, I'll take a step back. So originally the technology,
And before you
yeah,
take a step back, for all of those of you that are on the audio, go to YouTube and watch the video so you can see what John held up. So continue. Take the
yeah,
step back.
yeah. So I'll take the step back. So basically the technology that we're talking about was originally designed for the Army and Marine Corps' joint non-lethal weapons program. And so the original technologies, right, were all mil exempt products. So from point blank to 19 meters, we were permanently blinding people, right, which we cannot obviously sell to the commercial market, which means you can't sell to law enforcement. Law enforcement has to use commercial grade products. You can't be selling things that can permanently blind people. So the Cerberus was designed, or that technology was designed to kind of tailor down what we were using for the mill exempt products and allow for the operator to use something from that point blank to 19 meters that wasn't going to permanently blind people. And so what this product does is it puts the most amount of energy that we legally can into someone's eyes before you hit that permanent damage threshold.
Hmm.
So, for lack of a scientific term, it's the most annoying light you can possibly look at, you know. And so when an officer paints a target with the light, or you could buy this like off our website's commercial grade product. But when that happens, when someone gets painted with it, everyone will see spots and be disoriented and lose some depth
Hmm.
perception from anywhere from 20 seconds to 2 minutes. It really just depends on the person's genetic makeup of their eye. Now, everyone has a different genetic makeup of their eye. So
Hmm.
some people will, on the extreme scale, if they've got really weak genetics, the interaction with light can be more severe. I've done some demos with the light where the person felt instantly nauseous or instantly had a
Hmm.
headache or had more other symptoms. Those are much more rare. Um, but they do happen. And so it just kind of depends on the person. Now, my our focus kind of in this system is kind of like multi-prong, and I hate using that because everyone uses that, but it really is. And I think that because when we talk about using this as like an escalation of force piece or a use of force piece, right? If I'm painting a target with this and they put their hands up and they're still trying to move through this light to come towards me, like that's showing some other version of intent. You know what I mean? Because this is
Hmm.
not fun to look at. And
Sure.
so and so there's a couple things that are cool about it. One, it's not pepper spray, right? So like this is a light system. It's not
Hmm.
gonna miss. It's not gonna like the wind's not gonna blow it back in your face. It's not gonna get everyone around you. It's not gonna get the officer standing next to you.
Right.
It's basically like you're mitigating that whole risk factor of using pepper spray. And the other portion of it, now it's not as I would say it's not that pepper spray is totally disabling,
Hmm.
but you're not going to have that same disabling effect. Um, However, it is still going to give you that extra moment to develop your next course of action. You're going to
Hmm.
give you that extra second to like, okay, what do I do next? But I think the biggest one of the biggest things is from the city standpoint, and I think from a keeping men and women in the fight standpoint, when an officer uses pepper spray, they're now sitting through decontamination with that person for 4 to 6 hours, right?
Yeah.
That which means they're off the beat, not doing their job, and it's just taxpayer money going down the drain when they
Hmm.
could be out helping the next person. And so this product eliminates that decontamination space where now that officer can paint the target, move to the next thing, and like go on to like how they're gonna handle the the citizen they're working with. And I think that's a huge step in the right direction when it comes to kind of like the escalation of force tools that are available out there. And yeah, so that's kind of been our big focus with that program is like how do we get this in the hands of officers as a standalone unit, and then progressively as they kind of see the value in it, right? We have I'll show you really quick. So and then you might
Hmm.
have to go to YouTube to go look at this, guys. But so we
You
have a
should be
standalone.
watching on YouTube
Yeah,
anyway, darn it.
we have a standalone holster, right? So this can be mounted, to your carrier or on your belt.
Hmm.
Um, but it can also be weapon mounted. And so the reason why I kind of go back and forth with this, like, you can use this as a tool for escalation of force, which is great, right? Which means you're putting, according to the DoD standards, right, that's called ocular glare. So this achieves like
Hmm.
maximum ocular glare. And so if you have one, iteration of ocular glare on the target that you're presenting to, right? And then you go to switch to your firearm, but then when on your firearm you don't have the same light, then you're actually losing that capability moving to your firearm. Now, if they draw their firearm, wouldn't you rather have the Cerberus or that technology still blinding them at max capacity than whatever other light is on your handgun?
Yeah.
Right? It keeps the same level of ocular glare on the target. And so I've been trying to kind of, and as we start to progress through this phase of like, hey, carry this as a standalone for sure, because you can't always draw your firearm, obviously. So this is a great
Hmm.
tool. But once you draw your firearm, maybe it would be good to have a standalone version and one on your firearm.
Hmm.
Now, I think that's going to take longer to get through um, to the agencies and to departments. Um, but it's just something to think about for them, like as they start to progress through like their escalation of force or use of force techniques. What
Yeah.
do they want to have? What capabilities they want to be able to still present? So,
And from one businessman to another, I love the idea of you don't just need one, you need two.
yeah, I mean, yes, I mean, at some level that there's some business etiquette to it, but I think genuinely that if I was if I needed to pull my firearm, right,
Hmm.
I would want the person who's pulling their firearm to not be able to aim down their sights as easily,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, no, I love all of that. In fact, I want one for home defense. You think about that, and in all seriousness, I don't know, and I've had the pleasure to talk to hundreds and hundreds of law enforcement professionals around the country. I don't know any one of them, even ones that did have to shoot and kill a suspect rightfully. I don't know any of them that wants to do that.
No,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. Even in the worst of situations where they did what they had to do, nobody wants to be in that situation. And at the low end of that product, you said 20 seconds. Well, it'll disorient them for at least 20 seconds. 20 seconds in the law enforcement world is huge. Yeah, I had
yeah,
a gentleman, Frank Magaha, a couple of episodes ago who was talking about just before he retired, he had, some injuries and so forth, and he said he was moving a little bit slower, and he said one of his worst days was when his partner was ahead of him running after a suspect, and he was lagging behind a little bit, and the suspect went behind a wall. He mentioned that his partner was without him for about 9 seconds, and he talked about how that was the longest 9 seconds of his life. And you think of how long 9 seconds is. It didn't even take me that long to just clear my throat. So 20 seconds to disorient somebody and to make a decision. Can I slap cuffs on them? Can I just pull out a taser? Can I get away with not shooting this individual but keeping him from harming me, and just as important, anybody else in that 20 seconds? That's huge.
yeah. No, 20 seconds is that's why I'm glad you brought that up, because 20 seconds is a long
Hmm.
time. 2 minutes is a long time. And so, when the perp or whoever that we're dealing with, that gets painted with this light, every time you blink, you're going to see these same three spots, like kind of like tracking wherever you're trying
Hmm.
to look at, right? And so, it can be an extremely useful tool. A half our AARs are, people, units from three-letter agencies, from local departments. The other half are just civilians on the street in Seattle, like women who want to go out for a jog at night but don't want to
Yep.
be, harassed by homeless or whoever else,
Hmm.
whoever's on the street, and they use it to kind of keep people at bay. And
Yeah.
so, it's a great product, and we've been really happy with kind of where it's at now. And there is going to be some new iterations coming out of the technology. One of those iterations is that I can talk about, at least, is the Vision Blade system. And
Hmm.
so that basically it's this technology, but in a light bar. So you'll be able to attach it to your tactical vehicles, to shields, to doing building hardening. So if you wanted to have this outside of your home, for example, like at your front door, instead of having like a motion detector with a flood lamp, you'd have a motion detector with the Cerberus technology.
Hmm. Well, I think it's your policy when you're a guest on a podcast that you send one of those as a gift to the host. Is that correct? Did I hear that
Oh,
right?
yeah, you heard exactly right. That's actually what
Yeah.
I led with. I don't know if anyone caught it, but
Yeah, yeah, I would definitely take one. I want to go out and buy one. I think that that is a terrific idea. I think too, of situations. I was never a police officer, but have heard and lived vicariously through a number of them. And I know one of their worst situations that they hate being involved in are domestic disputes, domestic issues.
mhm.
Robberies are pretty straightforward. They want to
Yeah,
steal stuff and go away. Generally, while it happens, you generally don't wind up in a firefight with a robbery. But yeah, in domestic disputes, you've got people whose emotions are ridiculously high. Sometimes you have alcohol and or drugs involved, and you don't necessarily, person may not even have a record of even violence. It's just, you caught, a good person on a really, really bad day. And,
yeah,
to be able to just, shine a light, subdue them and say, all right, you're coming with us and you got to calm down.
yeah.
This doesn't have to be, maybe you need to go to anger management or something, but this doesn't have to be a huge life altering event, because we're going to use deadly force. So I love that product. I think that it's really smart.
Thank you. Yeah. I have my CTO to thank for that. So
Well,
he's the
why
kind of
why why are we talking to him? Why are we talking to you? We can bring the
yeah, I don't know.
CTO.
Yeah, I don't know why, honestly. No, he like a lot of CTOs, he likes to keep his head down and continue continue working out processes. But yeah, so I'm sure. Well, a lot of your viewership, if they're from the law enforcement side of the house, they've probably heard of a company called B.E. Myers, which was
Mhm, mhm.
a who makes the Maul and other tactical lasers and stuff. They've done a lot of stuff for the military for the last 20-ish years. So so yeah, so that's a family-owned business, right? And so my CTO is Clint Myers. So he was
Oh,
the
okay,
oldest
yeah.
brother, and so he was the one that helped develop a lot of the non-lethal stuff for B.E. Myers. And when he retired out of the company, he had brought the service technology out with him, and that's when we kind of paired up and decided like, hey, let's go do this together.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, as I said before, I love this cross section of law enforcement and entrepreneurship. And this is kind of an off the cuff question, but given your experience in the great things your company is doing, I'm interested in your perspective. AI is obviously a big thing, and there's a lot of different opinions on artificial intelligence. The few things that I've heard of that relate to law enforcement have been good. Like, let's let AI do more of the paperwork, so our officer, who he or she does is hired to do, go out and help people and not sit there for 5 hours writing reports. That was just one example that I heard. As you continue to develop technology for law enforcement, military, healthcare, firefighters, and so forth, do you see or use artificial intelligence in any way, or do you see a benefit of AI in those areas in the near future?
I think that I mean, you'd have to be blind to say no. I mean,
Yeah.
I think it's undeniable, like the use case and proficiency of AI. I mean, our company uses AI. Um, I'm blessed to have some people in the background that are, at the top of their, the top of their vertical when it comes to AI.
Hmm.
One of the fellows that I'm connected with, he's basically at the top of Cyber Command, and he's at the top of the game when it comes to integrating AI for like in the use of like satellite cryptology,
Hmm.
So it's being used everywhere. It's being used at the elementary level in
Hmm.
schools to the highest level of the DoD. Like
Yeah.
the gap is massive, and eventually it will just be part of everything, I think. And so I think that learning how to use it, adapt with it, it's going to be the companies that understand that kind of like will become the leaders or at the forefront of the pack, right? If you can't,
Yeah.
well, honestly, it's just like any technology. If you can't adapt to what's new, like
Hmm.
if you can't adapt with it and overcome, then you're just gonna get left behind. And so I think that AI is a great tool. I think that as long as it's not being abused, which is obviously a
Right.
huge, a huge back and forth that everyone kind of has with it. Yeah, I don't mind officers using it to help write reports, but if it's
Mhm.
writing the report and then something's incorrect because you just got lazy and didn't, read over it or
Correct.
whatever the case is, and then, you know, so that's the only real issue I think with it is like the dependence part, right?
Yeah.
Becoming overly dependent on it is where we get into trouble, as far as like an everyday tool.
Yeah, I agree. Everything's a tool. Gun's a tool. It could be used for good, used for bad, for Pete's sake. And the irony wasn't lost on me, by the way, that you finished talking about a temporary blinding device, and then you said you have to be blind to not recognize AI. Was that was that meant, or did that just happen naturally?
It just happened naturally, honestly. I honestly did not try to do that.
I
But
picked up on that. I'm sharp that way. But anyhow, continue.
but yeah, yeah, so I think that as we move along, yeah, I mean AI is going to be a big part of where law enforcement starts to have this integration. I guess the thing that really bothers me with it is like
Hmm.
it can be like you just said, it can be used for good, it can be used for evil. You know what I mean? And
Yeah,
so there's what AI is capable of now, even right now. And the AI that we're witnessing, like at the commercial level, is nowhere close to where it actually is,
right.
which is the truly scary thing,
Mm.
right? Because if it falls into the wrong hands, if the true capabilities fall into the wrong hands, like the actual public won't know what's real and not real.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I don't know if you've seen any of these videos that people have made where it's like you take that into a courtroom and show like a panel of people that are judging somebody, like, oh, here's the evidence this guy did something or this woman did something. Like, and you're gonna have to decipher without being
Yeah.
able to actually physically like have that file to like see if it's been doctored or, like I think that's the scariest thing to me is, like evidence might be thrown out the window because like, oh, well, that was generated by AI.
Yeah, yeah. I have thought of that. I mean, you see some of these videos that are created by AI, and they look so lifelike. Ironically, when I go later today to edit this video and put it on YouTube, YouTube now asks a question, something to the effect of, "Is there anybody basically falsely generated, or have you created a person that really isn't there for your video?" And when
Yeah.
when I started doing this, around 10 years ago, you never had that question. But to the audience, John is really John. He's an actual human being who is answering my questions and dealing with my stupid jokes.
The fact that we're even having to say that it's mind blowing, right?
Yeah,
Like just speaking to a generation, it's like like look at where we are versus like we weren't not even that long ago, not
yeah.
even that long ago, that we had. This was a fantasy. This was things of sci-fi movies that we're like living right now.
Yeah, I was having dinner with my wife the other day, who was in healthcare for 30 years, and maybe I'm naive, but was looking at AI, and it's like, before we're in the ground, you're probably going to have Alzheimer patients with an AI chip that helps them remember things, and wind up with chips that will make people that are paralyzed be able to walk again, and things of that nature. And I believe that that's very possible. But yeah, the idea of Iran basically creating an AI video that says something that isn't true, that that creates a war or something, is pretty frightening too.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said before, we live in interesting times, but
Yeah, we do. Well, let's get
yeah,
back.
yeah,
Let's get back as we begin to close up, because I know you've got a lot of things going on, and more important things than talking to me, and we really appreciate your time today. But getting back to War Inc., what is the one or two things that you're really the most proud of? Is it a product creation for the military? Is it a new device for first responders? When you look back at what you've been able to do and create with War Inc., is there something that you say, yeah, you know what, we really did something special there?
Yeah, I think that honestly the Cerberus technology is one of those things. It's kind of like a great highlight piece for the company.
Yeah.
I think that that technology has the ability to save lives on both ends, not just the the officer using it or the civilian using it to keep someone at bay, but like potentially the person on the other end, right? Because like you said, in that heat of the
Hmm.
moment, people do weird and crazy things. That's why there was
Yeah.
something, that's why there's literally crimes of passion, right? Like
Hmm.
there's these moments in people's lives where like if they're maybe given the opportunity with one more step, and I know that like sometimes adding a step can work the opposite direction, but if we do have some other tool that allows you to catch the attention of somebody, because again, pepper spray doesn't always work, doesn't always make it to the target. If it's windy, it comes back on you. Like this product always reaches the target, right?
Hmm.
Point blank to 19 meters, even from, and so yeah, I didn't hit on this before, but from point blank to 19 meters is its max effective range. But from point blank to 200 meters, it qualifies for the DoD signal and hail warning. So out to 200
Hmm.
meters, basically, if you're looking in the direction of the light at all, you will notice it. Like it is impossible to not like realize that something's happening. Like you see the flash, and so um, I think that this product hands down will save lives. And
Yep.
and this goes, and it has a military application too. Like when especially now that we're seeing in Ukraine, all that like trench warfare is making a
Hmm.
comeback, right? And so from point blank to 19 meters, like trench warfare, like that is like the perfect distance for for the military to use it, for everyone to use it. And so I think that yeah, the Cerberus technology, we're really proud of that program. And um on the order, I mean that's like our only, and that's the only commercial product that we really deal in, as
Hmm.
far as the law enforcement goes. Um, because like I said, most of our stuff, our focus is allied countries and government to government and larger scale pieces. But yeah, that's been a really fun project, and I'm excited for the next iterations. Like I said, the Vision Blade system being able to integrate into more different aspects. One of those being into schools for like anti-shooter
Hmm.
programs. Um, and yes, I think the future of the Cerberus technology is going to be a huge benefit to society as a whole.
Yeah.
Um, and so the other kind of 30,000 foot view thing that we
Hmm.
have going on is just on the ordnance side, which we're really proud of, which is so you can see this back here. So this is a 70 millimeter warhead. So we own
Hmm.
the TDPs for that. And so our focus is, um, our tagline for weapons aerospace and research is forging the future of defense. So everything from small scale stuff for the operator all the way up to ordnance, we want to change, we want to make things better. And so
Right.
I started something called the Ordnance Nexus Initiative. And so right now our focus is basically helping the U.S. as we see it, as we see it being a problem on the development side. That we have a manufacturing problem, right? So we have a supply chain resilience issue, and so
Hmm.
our goal is to help fix some of those issues and create ecosystems that allow us to uh, mitigate some of those issues. And so it's a larger program, but we're really pumped about it because I think that it's necessary, it's needed. I mean, we can't have the U.S. falling behind on the defense side of it.
Correct.
And right now we're looking at like a 30-year problem when it comes to the ordnance that's available. So how do we
Hmm.
make it long? How do we make it last longer? Like I was talking about the brake rotors, right?
Hmm.
That technology we can introduce to shells, which means we can make them potentially last longer, like have longer shelf lives. We can make them more lethal. We can make them more accurate. And so I think all those things are beneficial to the security of the country. So
No, that's awesome. I think you should be proud of all that. I probably won't get a warhead in my house, but
no,
I want that
no,
Cerebrus light.
yeah, I know.
That I could probably have.
No, yeah, no, that's for sure. And offline, I'll work out, make sure we can get one in your hands.
Awesome.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
you should be very proud of what you're doing with all those products. I have no doubt that you've probably already saved lives with the Cerebus. Am I getting that right? Cerebus?
Cerberus,
Cerberus. Like,
Cerberus, yeah, the Cerberus, like the three-headed dog from
ah,
Greek
okay.
mythology, yeah.
Ah,
Because
see.
because there's three lights, so I'll hold it up one more time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I never even thought about it. I actually took Greek mythology in high school, but that was a long, long time ago, John. But
All good. Yeah.
I love what you're doing. I really appreciate what you're creating for law enforcement, military, our medical professionals out there. Before we let you go, so you can go and talk to your CTO and create more of that, for folks out there, especially on that Sybaris, for all of our law enforcement that are watching or listening out there, how can they best find War Inc. out there?
Yeah, so if you guys want to head over to very simple www.war, so war.inc, that's the website. Please, if you guys are listening to this, send me an email at john@war.inc or sales@war.inc. That'll go through the right channels. We offer LEO discounts. We love working with departments. So if you guys want to put in a larger order, we can work with you. And we just want to see this technology in more hands of officers so that we can help keep them safer. So.
Yep, and I could say personally, when you send an email to John, you get a response from John in a pretty timely fashion. So it's not going to go through 5 or 6 different people or some kind of AI program where you wind up with somebody else. You're going to communicate with John. John, thank you so much for what you're doing and for taking a little bit of time with us today.
Yep, no problem, absolutely. And just to clarify, my name is Jon, not John. So Jon@war.inc. That's my email. So
Yeah, if you want to listen to the soundtrack of Jaws, that would be John Williams. If you want one of those great lights or a warhead, it's Jon. But John, thank you so much for taking some time with us today. It's been our pleasure, and thank you to all of you who have either watched or listened to this episode of Public Safety Talk Radio. And we'll be back with you next week with another great guest. Public Safety Talk Radio is produced by the POCUA. POCUA is a consortium of financial institutions serving law enforcement as well as other first responders and public safety professionals. To learn more about our association and to find one of our credit unions or service providers near you, go to www.policecreditunions.com. And always remember, if you aren't working with one of our POCUA credit unions, you're just banking with an institution that just so happens to serve first responders. As a public safety professional, you and your family deserve better. Find a POCUA credit union today.